What's good, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Boombox Guru, music commentary and discussion for music lovers. I'm your host, LB, and in today's episode, I want to discuss the controversy that's been surrounding DJ VLAD of VladTV. Those of you who may not know, there's been a huge controversy stirring up where he did something that didn't sit well with some prominent people within the hip-hop community and outside of the hip-hop community. Three of his most frequent guests have decided to cut ties with him. They're no longer going to appear on the show, and they're also calling for the boycott of other people, specifically a lot of people within the black community, not to support him any longer. And there's even been videos posted and people on social media going as far as to say that VLAD is finally canceled. But honestly, from my perspective, it doesn't seem that way, and I don't think his cancellation is going to be as easy as some of these people think. So if you want to hear my thoughts on this matter and where I think that the situation is going to go, I appreciate if you just stay tuned and keep it locked in. What's good, everybody? Want to welcome you all to another episode of the Boombox Guru. I'm your host, LB, the Boombox Guru. So without any further ado, I just want to go ahead and get into this whole discussion. And what I want to talk about today is the controversy surrounding DJ VLAD and VladTV. Now, for those of you who may not know, about a month or two ago, he did an interview with DL Hughley on the platform, and in one of the clips, he actually misquoted Louis Farrakhan, or as a lot of people may refer to him, the Honorable Minister Farrakhan, who, if you don't know, he's the leader of the NOI, the Nation of Islam. And a lot of people who follow the nation within the black community, a lot of people within the hip-hop community really look at him in high regard. And there was a quote that he did in a speech back in the 4th of July that VLAD actually misquoted. So basically what VLAD did was he claimed in his misquote that that Farrakhan was calling Jews Satan and that he was encouraging people to pick up rocks and throw it at him, which is not what Farrakhan actually said. You can actually find videos on YouTube of the actual speech. But what Farrakhan actually said was, he said so-called Jews are Satan. He mentioned something about unveiling the curtains, which I take as exposing these people that he's deemed so-called Jews. And he said he was encouraging people to pick up the stone of truth. That's what he said. Now, those of you who are listening, you can take that how you want to. The way I see it, it was a misquote. You know, I'm not somebody that follows Farrakhan. I'm just basically reporting on this. But it sounds like a misquote to me. It's not actually what Farrakhan said in that speech. What VLAD said to D.L. Hughley in that interview is not what Farrakhan actually said in that speech. And I think it's also worth to mention that Farrakhan actually, not Farrakhan, but DJ VLAD is actually Jewish. So, you know, there's a whole history between Farrakhan, the NOI, and the Jewish community. There's a lot of animosity between the two. Farrakhan has done speeches throughout his career where the Jewish community has deemed it as anti-Semitic. So there's been a lot of back and forth between the two. And a lot of people who know about this are viewing what VLAD did as being deliberate, that maybe he deliberately misquoted Farrakhan because of that. And then some people are saying maybe he did it because he is trying to he's trying to get an interview from Farrakhan. Because a year ago, DJ VLAD, he did an interview on Adam 22's No Jumper podcast. And he mentioned in a slew of interviews that he said that they had set up that they didn't get. Farrakhan was one of them. So a lot of people are maybe thinking he did this in a way to try to, I guess, try to push Farrakhan into doing the interview. But the misquote, in any case, it caused an uproar amongst a lot of people within the hip hop community and those in the black community who follow Farrakhan. I remember when I was following VLAD TV on Instagram, I was looking at one of the clips that he had posted on his page, and I was looking at the comments, and I noticed that so many people were going in on VLAD, telling him, you need to apologize to the minister, apologize for misquoting the minister, and you need to do this, and yada, yada, yada. So I was sitting there like, dang, what happened? I missed out on something. So I went on YouTube to try to find the clip, but by that time, it had been already taken down and re-uploaded and edited out with that part where VLAD had misquoted Farrakhan. And then later we find out from Lord Jamar on his own show, the Yada Amin Godcast, that he was actually the one behind the scenes that told VLAD that he should take that clip down and, retract that misquote and edit it out. So with this happening, it spurred a lot of response videos from a lot of people. I think probably the most visible would be Royce the 5'9". Those of you who may not know who Royce the 5'9" is, he's an MC from Detroit, Michigan. He is probably best known for being a frequent collaborator with Eminem. He was also a member of the supergroup Slaughterhouse, along with Joe Budden, Joel Ortiz, and Crooked Eye. But he has released, I think, about 3 videos where he was basically giving his opinion on the matter. He talked about how he's always had a pretty cool relationship with VLAD. And he even said he talked to VLAD on the phone about this. He said VLAD called him, I think that was in the second video, maybe, where he said VLAD called him. But he basically said what a lot of people were saying, that, we need to give an apology. And he gave an example about how, when Nick Cannon said what he said on his Cannon's Class podcast that was deemed anti-Semitic by a lot of people within the Jewish community, he was made to pretty much apologize. So what Royce was saying is that when somebody within the black community who was looked up in such a high regard is disrespected or whatever, not in those words, then you should be held accountable and you should apologize too. But VLAD didn't apologize, and according to Royce, and I believe his second video, VLAD told him that he actually has talked to other people who, I guess, identify with the nation, and they told him that he didn't have to apologize. So that just caused even more of a controversy, because he now is refusing to apologize. Lord Jamar and Godfrey, who are frequent guests, who have been frequent guests on VladTV, they said that they talked to VLAD behind the scenes, and they basically gave him an ultimatum. They told him to say, hey, you gotta give Farrakhan an apology, or we can't associate with you no more. We can't be on the show no more. And Godfrey is also on the Yada Amin Godcast with Lord Jamar and Rod Digger. Lord Jamar and Godfrey did a couple of videos on the matter, and Godfrey talked about how he actually tried to set up some type of meeting with Elijah Muhammad Jr., the son of the previous leader of the NOI, Elijah Muhammad. He was trying to set up something where VLAD could talk to Farrakhan and apologize. And he claims that VLAD was fine with just talking to Farrakhan over the phone and apologizing. But VLAD actually said that he would not apologize to Farrakhan unless he could sit down with him face to face. And a lot of people took that as him trying to gain attention or some type of buzz off of that interview, because he did say that in that No Jumper interview that Farrakhan was one of the interviews they had lined up and they didn't get it. So a lot of people that were already going in and being critical of VLAD's ulterior motive behind this, or whatever, if that's how you want to call it, they were already saying that he was trying to use that as a way to gain a buzz off of Farrakhan, and that who does he think he is to sit down with the minister. Royce the 5'9" even said that in his video, like, he was saying like, who do you think you are to, well, he didn't say it in those words, but basically that's what everybody was saying. They were basically saying that he wasn't, they was basically saying he's not good enough. His platform isn't big enough or good enough for Farrakhan to come on and sit down. But Godfrey was saying that that's not what it was. It wasn't him trying to get an interview on VLAD TV. He was just wanting to sit down with Farrakhan face to face and talk about things. But whatever the case, they gave VLAD the ultimatum. He refused, so they've decided not to go on the show any longer. And of course, my son, who was another frequent guest on the show, although he hasn't been on there in a while before this even happened, he got into a heated debate with Royce the 5'9" about this, because Royce actually kind of called out Lord Jamar and Godfrey and my son, I guess because they weren't really openly saying anything about it when it initially happened. Actually, Royce's videos what spurred Lord Jamar and Godfrey to make their videos. And then, of course, my son and Royce ended up doing a video where they got into a heated debate about things, about the whole matter. And then later on, my son comes out with a video and he announces that he is cutting ties with VLAD, that he will no longer be on the show. Because VLAD actually came out and said something about he has given my son money. And I don't know if VLAD actually meant that in a malicious way, but apparently that's how my son took it. And he, in the video, was saying that, it's not like VLAD was paying his bills or taking care of him. It was more so like if his car broke down and he was short on paying for the repairs, like VLAD, he would call VLAD, hit him up, and VLAD would loan him the money or whatever. He said it was like that. But he also claims in his video that VLAD said something about they can't hurt his bottom line. This is all him, Lord Jamar and Godfrey talking about leaving and no longer appearing on the platform. And the way my son brought it up, it seems that maybe VLAD was saying that black people can't hurt his bottom line. That's the way he was pushing it. Now, I don't know if that's what VLAD meant. Because personally, I think maybe he was talking about them guys in particular. That's the way I view it. I'm not really looking at it as a whole race thing. This is why I'm kind of trying to stay neutral in this, because I don't know what's going on. I don't know if this is a race thing or if this is something that all these guys are orchestrating in order for everybody to benefit from all this. Because my son, I believe he has gotten a deal with iHeart, which VLAD also has a deal with iHeart. So now you could kind of say that they're going to be competitors now, depending on what my son is going to be doing. And then it's also worth a mention that in the midst of this, and this is right before Godfrey and Lord Jamar decided they were going to cut ties with VladTV, VLAD actually came out and said that he had his biggest month on VladTV without Lord Jamar and Godfrey. Now, Lord Jamar and Godfrey they've brought in a lot of good numbers for VLAD, especially Lord Jamar. Lord Jamar started coming on VLAD back in 2013, and he did help build that channel up to where it is now. I can agree to that, because there was a time during them early years of VladTV where he had a slump, where he really wasn't getting a lot of good interviews, or he wasn't getting interviews at all. And then out of nowhere, Lord Jamar appears on the platform, and his controversial statements about a lot of things in society was getting VladTV a lot of hits. Because there was one point during this period where Lord Jamar was on VladTV almost every week. It was almost like he had a 9-to-5 job with VladTV. He was on there all the time. He was pretty much the only person that VLAD was interviewing for a minute. And Lord Jamar has said that he was responsible for a lot of cats coming on that platform. And I can agree to that. I would say not just him, but I would say Trade E from the East Siders as well. Because when Trade E first got out of prison, he went on VladTV. He did several interviews on VladTV. And, his responses and his answers and a lot of the statements that he were making about a lot of questions that Vlad would ask him, he would pretty much give it to him straightforward. He wouldn't hold back. He wasn't really concerned about who he offended or what. And I think a lot of people respected Trey D for that. But Lord Jamar was responsible for building the channel up and getting it to where it is now. So I definitely give him that credit because, like I said, before Lord Jamar got on there, the channel was kind of slumping. And then once he got on there, that's when you start seeing all these more veteran hip-hop artists doing interviews on there. And then you started getting more of the politically, socially conscious people that coming on there too, doing interviews. And I would also say that Godfrey is responsible for Vlad interviewing a lot more comedians on the channel. Because there wasn't a whole lot of comedians that were being interviewed on there until after Godfrey started coming on there. So I would say that he was responsible for that, as well as TK Kirkland. I would say those two are really responsible for having so many comedians come on there. But to keep this thing going, a lot of people are saying that Vlad is canceled and so forth. I personally don't think that VLAD is canceled. I don't think he's canceled. And if he is going to be canceled, it's not going to be that easy to cancel him. You got to understand, VLAD has been on YouTube for over a decade now. I remember when the channel first started. So it's not like Vlad just burst on the scene in the past couple years. Nah, he actually put in the work to build the channel to where it is now. And you have to give credit where credit is due. Vlad puts out a lot of good content. However you may feel about the man, he does put out good content. Now, don't just take my word for it, though. I want you guys, if you have the time, to go on a website called socialblade.com. Socialblade.com is a website that keeps track of people's viewership and subscriptions, basically their stats on YouTube, and maybe on other social media platforms. Definitely go check that out. Don't take my word for it. But if you go and look up DJ VLAD, or should I say VladTV's stats, he is still growing when it comes to viewership. His viewership has not slowed down. It's actually jumped. Now, there was another YouTuber that I was watching about this whole controversy when I was researching to do this episode. He did say in the interview that around the time when this whole controversy heated up, that Vlad lost 20,000 subscribers. Now, if you look on Social Blade, if you look at Vlad's stats on Social Blade, he did lose those 20,000 subscribers. But it still really didn't affect him that much. And there was also a point, which was last year in 2019, I think it was around October. He had a pretty big slump. But that was last year. This was way before this even happened. His viewership is still going up. You can look at it now. It goes to the most recent day of VLAD TV. And you will see that his viewership is still climbing. It's still going up because he's putting out good content. He's still dropping great interviews. He just finished doing an interview with Kid from Kid and Play. He's in the process of dropping an interview with Shaka Khan. He's not the one that's interviewing her. It's Lunel that's interviewing her. But he's dropping the interviews with Shaka Khan. He just started dropping an interview with John Sally. I think he's about to finish up on Michael Jai White. And I think last night, he dropped the interview of Crunchy Black from 3 6 Mafia. He's still putting out good content. That's why I'm saying he's not going to be that easily canceled. Now, Lord Jamar and Godfrey and all them saying, yo, stop supporting VLAD TV. Start supporting black creators and stuff. Okay, let's talk about the black creators that are out there. You got that can actually compete with VLAD TV. You got Drink Champs. You got People's Party by Talib Kweli. And you got the Yada I Mean Godcast. Right? Those are the ones that I could say that could really compete with VLAD. Now, excluding the Yada I Mean Godcast, here's the difference between Drink Champs, People's Party, and VLAD TV. Here's the difference. They're not owned by none of the people that are on those shows. They're not owned by none of those people. VLAD actually owns VladTV. Drink Champs is owned by Revolt, that's Diddy. Diddy owns that. Uprocks owns People's Party. Talib, even though Talib may have been the creative mind behind that show, it airs on the Uprocks channel. Now, Lord Jamar, the Yada I Mean Godcast. Now, I don't know if Rod Digger and Godfrey have some type of stake in the Yada I Mean Godcast. I just pretty much assumed that that's Lord Jamar. Now, Lord Jamar owns that. But the Yada I Mean Godcast hasn't really been coming on that long. VLAD has had a decade to build up his brand of VLAD TV. Yada I Mean Godcast just started coming on maybe 2 or 3 years ago. So, I don't know what the future holds, but Lord Jamar's got a ways to go. And I also want to point out the fact that we got to go back to the content. The Yada I Mean Godcast, their content, although they have interviewed hip-hop artists, their content is more along the lines of socially conscious content. That's their main target. Their main target is mainly being socially conscious. That's where they're headed at. Most of their videos aren't about hip hop or street stuff of that nature. They're more about being socially conscious. So they kind of have a niche target market, a specific demographic of people that are going to pay attention to that channel. Now, there's only one other channel that I can think of that can truly compete with VLAD, and that's No Jumper by Adam 22. It's similar. It's a similar format in some ways. The only difference is that Adam 22 interviews a lot more younger up and coming hip hop artists. But he does own that platform. He does own the No Jumper platform. Just like VLAD owns VLAD TV. And there's a lot of similarities. And I can tell you one. Recently, VLAD has been interviewing a lot more up-and-coming hip-hop artists. Okay? Now, No Jumper has had that on lock for a long time. Ever since he even started going in that direction. Now, here's the difference. It's kind of a mirror image, though. Follow me. While VLAD has started interviewing a lot more of the younger up-and-coming hip-hop generation, Adam 22 he's been interviewing a lot of the veteran hip-hop artists. I think he just recently did an interview with MC8. He also has done interviews, I think like 2 interviews with Spice One. He had Evidence from Dilated Peoples on there. I think one of his first interviews was with Master P. One of his first interviews when he started to really gear towards the more interview format and getting into the hip hop, because No Jumper actually started out as more of a vlog BMX channel. But once he started gearing towards the hip hop stuff, I think Master P was one of his first interviews. Him and Romeo and his sister, Symphonique. Yeah. But he's been dabbling a little bit more into interviewing a lot of the hip hop veterans. So it's kind of a mirror image. Now, here's another thing. VLAD is a really good businessman. The whole VLAD, remember the VLAD stocks thing he was doing on there? He's managed to make a lot of money from this channel in the decades that it's been on. And one thing I do like about the channel is that VLAD has actually created different avenues to tap into. Even though VLAD TV is still mainly a hip hop channel, he's also been interviewing actors, comedians, real gangsters, and mobsters. He's interviewed a lot of business people, a lot of entrepreneurs, social media influencers. VLAD has created different avenues for him to work his way around. So if one area dries up, he can go to the next one and start really just focusing in on that. Now, I know at one point he was interviewing a lot of porn stars, although he said he stopped that because he didn't want that really to be connected with his channel. And I'm glad he did do that because, now with the way my mind is now, yeah, I don't think that was really a good look to have porn stars on there. But honestly, he's created all these different avenues to where he can pretty much dabble wherever he wants to. And like I said, most of these other platforms that could sort of compete with him, I'm not saying that they can't do that, but they're not really doing that. They pretty much have a certain demographic and a target market that they're going after. Now, now what I, excuse me, sometimes I lose my train of thought, but what I really think is the best way if people think they can cancel Vlad is that people just gonna have to step up the content. In all honesty, they're just gonna have to step up their content. Yeah, you want people to stop supporting him and support more black content creators. That's good. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm not knocking that, but you gotta come with the content. You gotta come with the content. That's the thing. The reason why Vlad's viewership is still going up, and he's probably even still getting subscribers. His subscription, even though after he lost that 20K, it's still been stable. He hasn't gone down any further when it comes to subscribers. And if you look, he might even still be gaining subscribers. But he keeps putting out good content. It's going to take more than you just telling people to boycott his channel. It's going to take more than you to just say, hey, support black content creators. Hey, look, if that's what you want to do, that's fine. But understand that if somebody's putting out good content that they like, they're not going to just easily just stop doing it. Now, the only people that I really think that are going to just solely stop watching VladTV are the people that probably just solely watched it because they wanted to see Lord Jamar and Godfrey. And definitely the people that are followers of the Nation of Islam and who follow Farrakhan. Those are the main ones that are really going to stop watching the channel. But everybody else is not really tripping on it like that. This younger generation, they not tripping on stuff like that. Especially these younger artists. Lord Jamar said something in one of his videos about this situation. He was saying that he was going to deem every black person that go on VladTV as a corny or a cornball. He used one of the two terms. I don't know. Listen, I respect Lord Jamar. I don't necessarily agree with everything that he says. But dude, everybody's not going to care about what you think of them. That's just reality. I give you a great example. Crunchy Black from 3-6 Mafia. Like I said earlier, VLAD just dropped a new interview with him. I don't know Crunchy Black personally. I ain't never met the man. I just know him from his music with 3-6 Mafia. But he does not strike me as the type of person that's going to care what Lord Jamar thinks about him. He going to do what he want to do as an individual. Same thing with Boosie. I think Boosie's still going to go on the platform. Because Boosie's the type of person, he ain't worried about what somebody else's opinion is of him. He going to do what he going to do. That's what I'm saying. It's going to take more than you just telling people telling every black person they a cornball just because they go on VladTV. And then these younger artists is coming up. Most of them probably not even concerned about Farrakhan or whatever. And I don't mean any disrespect. I'm just telling it how it is. They're looking at VladTV as a big platform that if they go on there, it's going to generate a lot more buzz for them. And it's going to make them a lot more money in the long run. That's the way the younger artists are looking at this. They are not caring about any type of integrity or loyalty. And honestly, listen, I'm not going to put the blame on them if they want to do that. As far as calling this whole boycott, it should be left up to the individuals if they want to support or not support VladTV any longer. Like me, for instance, I don't necessarily agree with everything that Vlad does. I'll give you a great example. When he did that interview with No Plug a few years ago, I thought that was in poor taste. Because No Plug pretty much got on that interview and he showed no remorse for killing Bankroll Fresh. And it caused an uproar, not only within the hip hop community, but in the streets of Atlanta. A lot of people died off of that interview in the streets of Atlanta on both sides, from No Plug side and Bankroll side. And when Bankroll's family tried to get in touch with VLAD so they could give their side of the story, he wouldn't even give them the interview. He wouldn't give them the interview. And he was acting as if he didn't want to get involved and stir up any trouble, but he did. And I don't know if the interview was still up on VladTV, but the last time I checked, which wasn't too long ago, that interview with No Plug is still up on VladTV. I don't agree with that. I don't necessarily agree with his line of questioning either, how he kind of gets people caught up in the questioning. I mean, granted, if you from the streets, you should be smarter and you should know how to maneuver around certain questions. But if you listen to the interview he did with AZ Faison, the way he was asking him questions, it sounded like an FBI agent, honestly. But AZ was smooth. He was sharp. He knew how to maneuver around that. The reason why I keep watching the channel is because of that content. The AZ Faison interview is one example of that. Paid in Full is one of my favorite movies. That movie, AZ, is based on one of those characters. The character named Ace in Paid in Full, that's AZ Faison, the real guy. I wanted to watch that interview because that's one of my favorite movies, and I wanted to get the real story that the movie is based on. It was a great interview. Like I said, it's going to take more than just calling for a boycott and telling people, yeah, you shouldn't support this. If people really want to cancel VLAD, then they're going to have to step up the content and really compete with him. Now, the channels I just named, they can really compete with him. Yeah, they're good competition, but the thing is, they don't own that content. VLAD owns his content, which makes him a good businessman. Everybody's got to step it up all the way around if they really think they're going to cancel VLAD. So, people can post all these videos all they want to saying VLAD is canceled forever, but it's really not going to happen. His viewership is still going up and people are still watching his channel. He's got the content to back it up. So honestly, the only people that I know or that I think that are just going to solely stop watching his channel are the people that just solely watched it because they liked it, Lord Jamar and Godfrey. Those are the only people. And then there's a lot of guests that I feel are still going to be on the show. I honestly think that Napoleon from the Outlaws might still appear on there. BG Knockout might even go on there. Because I think BG Knockout might just go on there just to question VLAD about the situation. I even think Trey D might still appear on there. But VLAD is not going to be canceled that easily. He spent too many years building this up to where it is now. The only person that can really hurt VLAD is VLAD. And some of you may take this the wrong way, but he would have to really do something, or something would have to come out about him that's so terrible that people just cannot turn their back on it. They can't, where people can't just turn a blind eye to it. That's the only thing that's going to happen. VLAD is the only person that can really destroy his platform at this moment. And I honestly don't think that this misquoting Farrakhan is what's going to do it. I think it's done it for certain people who follow Farrakhan, who follow the nation, who look at Lord Jamar and Godfrey and my son as their favorite guest. But for the most part, as long as he's still putting out good content, as long as he's still got good guests on there, his show is still going to go. It's still going to grow. He's still going to get the viewership, and he's still going to get the subscriptions. So, do I think VladTV is canceled forever? I'm sorry, but I seriously doubt that that's the case. What's good, everybody? Hope you enjoyed this new episode of the Boombox Guru. And if you did enjoy this episode, I want you guys to do me a favor. I want you to follow me on Spotify at the Boombox Guru. Check it out on Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Radio Public. You can also follow my Instagram page at the Boombox Guru. You can also like my page on Facebook, known as the Boombox Guru. Just go ahead and check me out. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell anybody that you know that might be interested in this type of content about the Boombox Guru. And as always, hope everyone has a lovely day and be blessed.